The bullet grazed past Zola's ear before she even registered the sound of the gunshot. She hit the concrete hard, the taste of blood flooding her mouth as her teeth cut into her lip. Around her, the abandoned dockyard exploded into chaos. Muzzle flashes lighting the fog like deadly fireflies, men shouting in Korean, the metallic scent of gunpowder mixing with the salt air from the bay. "Zola!" His voice cut through the madness, raw and desperate in a way she'd never heard before. She rolled behind a shipping container, her hands shaking as she gripped the gun he'd taught her to use just 3 days ago. 3 days. That's all it had been since her world tilted sideways and never righted itself. Since she'd learned that the stranger who'd undone her with his hands and mouth wasn't a stranger at all, but a prince in a kingdom built on blood and bullets. But that wasn't where this story started. No, it started 3 weeks earlier, under neon lights and bass that thrummed through her bones like a second heartbeat. Welcome back to African Korean Story Hub Besties. We're about to start a new journey together once again. Kindly hit the like and subscribe button, as it will be of encouragement to me. The club was called Euphoria, and on most nights, Zola believed the name was a cruel joke. There was nothing euphoric about dancing for men who looked at her like she was something to be consumed, their eyes tracking every roll of her hips, every arch of her spine. She'd learned to make her mind go somewhere else during her sets, back to Cape Town, to her mother's kitchen where the smell of bobo tie filled her tiny flat, to the dance studio where her teacher had once told her she moved like water. But tonight, her mind wouldn't drift. Tonight, there was him. He sat in the corner booth like a king holding court. Though his court was empty, just him, a bottle of expensive whiskey she couldn't pronounce, and those eyes. Dark eyes that didn't undress her the way other men's did. No, his gaze felt different. Heavier. Like he was trying to read something written beneath her skin. Zola finished her set, her chest heaving, sweat sliding down her spine. The other girls rushed past her to work the floor, but she headed straight for the dressing room. She had a rule, never engage with the customers beyond what the job required. That rule had kept her safe for 8 months in Busan, kept her focused on her goal. Save enough money, bring her mother over, start the dance school she dreamed about since she was 7 years old. "Zola, wait. Sungmi," the club manager, caught her arm. The older woman's face was flushed with excitement. "VIP in booth 7 requested you. I don't do private dances. He doesn't want to dance. Just conversation. And he paid 5 million won for an hour of your time." Zola's breath caught. 5 million won. That was nearly $4,000. 2 months of rent. Money she could send home. Just conversation? That's what he said. "Come on, honey. When does that ever happen?" Never. It never happened. Which meant this man wanted something else. Something that made her skin prickle with warning. But $4,000 was $4,000, and her mother's medication wasn't getting any cheaper. Fine. 1 hour. She changed out of her performance outfit into a simple black dress, reapplied her lipstick, and made her way through the pulsing crowd to booth 7. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp jawline, hair pushed back from his forehead, a suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. But it was his eyes that held her, dark and bottomless, with something moving in their depths that might have been pain or might have been hunger. Maybe both. "Sit," he said in Korean, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. "Please." Zola slid into the booth, keeping distance between them. "You paid a lot of money for conversation." "I did." He poured whiskey into a glass, slid it toward her. "You're South African." It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. "Cape Town. And you're Korean, obviously, though your accent is different." "Educated abroad." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Princeton. Business degree I'll never use." He lifted his glass. "What brings a dancer from Cape Town to a club in Busan?" "The same thing that brings everyone anywhere. Survival." She sipped the whiskey, felt it burn down her throat. "What brings a Princeton graduate to a club at midnight on a Wednesday?" "The same thing that brings everyone anywhere," he echoed. "Survival." They stared at each other, and Zola felt something shift in the air between them. A recognition, perhaps, of two people wearing masks so practiced they'd almost forgotten their real faces underneath. "I'm going to be honest with you," he said, leaning forward. "I saw you dance, and I couldn't look away. Not because of how you moved, though you're extraordinary, but because of your eyes. You dance like someone performing an execution. Necessary, efficient, completely detached. Zola's fingers tightened around her glass. No one had ever seen that before. No one had ever looked past the performance to the performer. Maybe I don't like being watched. Then you chose the wrong profession. I chose a profession that pays. There's a difference. He nodded slowly, something like respect flickering across his features. What would you rather be doing? If money was an issue, teaching. I'd have a dance school back home. Classical ballet, contemporary, traditional African dance. I'd teach kids who couldn't afford lessons. The words tumbled out before she could stop them. Dreams she'd buried under the weight of necessity. What would you rather be doing? His expression shuddered. Something that doesn't require me to be who I am. Cryptic. Necessary. They talked for an hour, though it felt like minutes. He told her he was an import-export, which she knew was probably a lie. She told him she was studying at the university, which was definitely a lie. But beneath the lies, something true hung between them. A connection she couldn't name and didn't want to examine too closely. When Sungmi appeared to tell them the hour was up, Zola felt an irrational stab of disappointment. The man pulled out a black card, settled his tab without looking at the total. One more thing, he said as Zola stood to leave. Have a drink with me. Somewhere quieter. No names, no expectations. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse. This was how girls got hurt, got taken, got lost. Why no names? Because names create obligations. And tonight, I want to be nobody. Just a man having a drink with a beautiful woman who sees the world the way I do. And how do we see the world? Like it's something to survive, not enjoy. Zola should have walked away. Should have thanked him for the generous payment and gone home to her tiny apartment where the hot water only worked half the time. Instead, she heard herself say, "One drink, but I choose when I leave." I wouldn't have it any other way. They took his car, a sleek black Mercedes that smelled like leather and expensive cologne. He drove in silence, classical music playing softly from the speakers, and Zola watched the city blur past the windows. Busan at night was beautiful in its chaos. Neon signs bleeding color into the darkness, the ocean of vast emptiness beyond the glittering shore. His apartment was in Haeundae, the luxury district where Zola had never dared to walk, let alone enter. The penthouse took up the entire top floor, all floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist furniture that probably cost more than her yearly salary. But she barely noticed the decor. The view stole her breath. Busan spread out below like a treasure chest of light, the bay a dark mirror reflecting the city's glow. "It's beautiful," she whispered, moving to the window without thinking. "It is." But when she glanced back, he wasn't looking at the view. He was looking at her. He poured champagne, handed her a glass. They stood at the window, not touching, the silence between them charged with something electric and dangerous. "I should tell you," Zola said, her voice barely audible over the thundering of her heart. "I don't usually do this." "Do what?" "Go home with strangers. Let myself feel." She stopped, unsure how to finish that sentence. He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. "Feel what?" "Alive." The word escaped before she could trap it. "I haven't felt alive in a very long time." His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he traced a line of her jaw with his fingertips, the touch feather-light and absolutely devastating. "I know the feeling." "Who are you?" Zola asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted the answer. "Tonight? Nobody. Just a man who wants to remember what it feels like to touch something real." "And tomorrow?" "Tomorrow doesn't exist. There's only now." He was right. Tomorrow she'd go back to being Zola the dancer, the survivor, the daughter sending money home. Tomorrow he'd return to whatever world he came from, the one that put shadows in his eyes and tension in his shoulders. But tonight, they could be nobody together. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, his lips hovering near hers. Zola's answer was to close the distance between them. The kiss was nothing like she expected. It wasn't gentle or exploratory. It was desperate, consuming, like they were both drowning, and the other person was air. His hand slid into her hair, tilting her head back, and she grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer, never close enough. They stumbled backward, knocking over the champagne glasses. The sound of shattering crystal barely registered. His jacket hit the floor. Her dress followed. Skin against skin, breath against breath. Two broken people trying to fit their jagged pieces together, if only for a night. He lifted her, carried her to the bedroom where floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the city sprawling below. She should have felt exposed, but instead she felt powerful, free. When he laid her down on sheets that smelled like him, she pulled him down with her, refusing to let go. Beautiful, he murmured against her collarbone, her neck, her lips. You're so beautiful. No one had ever touched her like this. Like she was precious and profane at the same time, something to worship and devour. His hands mapped her body with thoroughness that made her tremble, and she learned the landscape of him in return. The scar on his ribs, the tattoo on his shoulder blade written in Korean characters she couldn't read, the way he shuddered when she kissed his throat. They moved together like a dance, rhythm finding them without words. Zola had never believed in fate, in destiny, in the idea that the universe conspired to bring people together. But in this moment, with his body pressed against hers, their hearts beating in sync, she understood why people wrote songs about this, why they started wars over it, why they destroyed themselves for one more touch, one more kiss, one more moment of feeling completely, devastatingly alive. He whispered her name like a prayer, like a curse, and she answered with his body since she didn't have his name. The city lights painted patterns across their skin as they came undone together, gasping into each other's mouths. Fingers digging into flesh hard enough to leave marks they'd carry for days. Afterward, they lay tangled in sheets, breathing hard, the silence between them no longer empty, but full of everything they couldn't say. He traced lazy circles on her shoulder, and she pressed her face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow. "Stay," he murmured. "Until morning." She should have left, should have gotten dressed, called a taxi, preserved whatever dignity remained. Instead, she fell asleep in his arms, feeling safer than she had since leaving Cape Town, which should have been her first warning that this man was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with violence. When she woke, golden sunlight was streaming through the windows. She was alone. The sheets beside her were cold. He'd been gone for a while. No note on the nightstand. No number programmed into her phone. Just the ghost of his cologne on the pillows and the ache between her thighs that proved last night had been real and not some fever dream conjured by loneliness and champagne. Zola dressed quickly, her cheeks burning with humiliation she refused to acknowledge. Of course he'd left. Men like him didn't stick around for dancers from clubs in Houndy. Last night had been exactly what he'd promised. Nothing. No names, no expectations, no tomorrow. She'd been stupid to feel disappointed. She let herself out of the penthouse, took the elevator down 30 floors, and stepped out into a Busan morning that looked exactly the same as every other morning. The world hadn't shifted on its axis. The universe hadn't changed. Only she had, in ways she couldn't name and didn't want to examine. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of routine. Dance, sleep, send money home, repeat. She told herself she'd forgotten him. She was good at lying to herself. She'd had years of practice. But sometimes she'd catch herself scanning the crowd during her sets, looking for dark eyes that saw too much. He never came back. Sunmi noticed her distraction. "You okay, honey? You've been off lately." "I'm fine," Zola lied. "Just tired. Maybe take a few nights off. Rest." But rest meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. And remembering meant feeling that hollow ache in her chest that had nothing to do with homesickness, and everything to do with a stranger who'd held her like she mattered. It was a Wednesday when everything changed. Zola was mid-performance, lost in the music, when the doors exploded inward. The bass cut out. Lights flooded the club. Men in tactical gear stormed in, weapons drawn, voices shouting in Korean. She could barely understand over the screaming. "Police!" Nobody move. Hands where we can see them. Chaos erupted. Girls scattered like startled birds. Zola froze on stage, her heart hammering against her ribs. What was happening? They had permits. The club was legal. Sunmi had always been careful about that. Rough hands grabbed her, yanked her off the stage. Her knees hit the floor. Cold metal bit into her wrists as zip ties tightened. Around her, other dancers were crying, pleading in Korean and broken English. Sunmi was face down on the bar, an officer's knee in her back. The club owner was being dragged out in handcuffs, blood streaming from his nose. They hauled Zola to her feet, pushed her toward the door. The ride to the station was a blur of fear and confusion. She was shoved into an interrogation room. Concrete walls, metal table. The fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like trapped insects. They left her there for hours. Or maybe minutes. Time felt elastic, stretching and contracting with each spike of panic. Finally, the door opened. A man entered, 40s, sharp suit, tired eyes. He set a folder on the table, sat down across from her. "I'm Detective Park," he said in English. "You're not under arrest, Miss Nkosi, but you should know you're in very serious trouble." "I don't understand. What's happening?" "We have permits. Club Euphoria is a front for money laundering. We've been investigating for 8 months. The owner has ties to organized crime. The Baekdu clan specifically." Park opened the folder, slid a photograph across the table. "Recognize this man?" Zola's blood turned to ice. It was him, her stranger, standing outside the club, checking his phone, caught in surveillance footage time-stamped the night they'd met. He was wearing the same suit, had the same expression. Closed off, dangerous, beautiful. "No," she lied, her voice barely a whisper. "Look again." Park slid over another photo. This one showed them leaving together, his hand on her lower back, her face tilted up toward his. "You left with him that night, went to his apartment, didn't return until the next morning." Zola's stomach dropped. They'd been watching. All this time they'd been watching. "I didn't know. He was just a customer." "He's not a customer, Miss Nkosi." Park pulled out another document, this one an official dossier with a photo clipped to the top. "He's Min Jae-hyuk, heir to the Baekdu clan. His father ran one of the most powerful criminal organizations in South Korea. Arms dealing, extortion, contract killing, human trafficking. 3 weeks ago, the father was assassinated at a peace summit with a rival gang. Jae-hyuk survived. Now he's in charge, and there's a war brewing." The words hit like physical blows. 3 weeks ago, the same night, the night he'd wanted to be nobody, to forget who he was, because his father had just been murdered, and he'd been thrust into a world of violence he couldn't escape. "I didn't know any of this," Zola said, her voice shaking. "I swear I didn't know." "I believe you, but that doesn't change your situation." Park leaned forward. "The Wolf Syndicate, they're the rival gang. They've been watching you. They saw you leave with Jae-hyuk. They think you matter to him, which makes you a target. That's insane. I spent one night with him. One night. He hasn't contacted me since. Doesn't matter. Perception is reality in their world. You're leverage now. A way to draw him out. Hurt him. Get information." Park's expression softened slightly. "I'm sorry. You got caught in something much bigger than you understood. So what happens to me? We'd like you to cooperate. Testify about what you saw, what you know. Help us build a case against the Baekdu clan. I don't know anything. We barely talked about anything real. No names, remember?" Hysteria crept into her voice. "I can't testify. I have nothing to testify about." Park's expression hardened. "Then you're no use to us. Which means you're completely vulnerable to the wolves. They don't know you can't help them. They'll come for you anyway. You're supposed to protect people. I'm supposed to take down criminal organizations. Sometimes innocent people get caught in the crossfire. That's unfortunate, but..." An explosion rocked the building. The lights flickered. Emergency alarm shrieked. Park's hand went to his weapon as plaster dust rained from the ceiling. "Stay down," he shouted, drawing his gun. The door blew off its hinges. Smoke poured in. Through the haze, figures emerged, masked men in tactical gear, weapons raised. Not police. Something else. Something worse. Park fired twice. One of the masked men shot back. Park jerked, blood blooming across his chest, and collapsed. Zola screamed, scrambling backward until her spine hit the wall. The masked men advanced. One of them raised his weapon, aimed at her head. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't." Strong hands grabbed her from behind, yanked her through a hole in the wall she hadn't noticed before. She tried to fight, to scream, but a hand clamped over her mouth. "Stop fighting." A familiar voice growled in her ear. "It's me." She knew that voice. Knew it from whispered words in darkness, from moans and prayers and promises that meant nothing in daylight. He pulled her through a maintenance corridor, his grip iron around her waist. Behind them, gunfire echoed. Men shouted. But he moved with absolute certainty, navigating the chaos like he'd planned this, like he'd known exactly where she'd be. They burst out into an underground parking garage. A black SUV waited, engine running. Another man in the driver's seat. Jae-hyuk shoved her into the back, climbed in after her, and the vehicle peeled out before the door even closed. Zola stared at him. He'd changed since that night. Harder somehow, colder, like something vital had been carved out and replaced with steel. His suit was spattered with blood that probably wasn't his. A gun rested on his thigh like it belonged there. "You lied to me," she said, her voice breaking. "So did you, dance student. I am a dancer. In a club I own. That launders my family's money." His eyes were flat, emotionless. "Did you know? Is that why you came home with me?" "What?" "No, I didn't know anything." They stared at each other, and Zola saw it then, the suspicion in his gaze, the calculation. He didn't trust her. Maybe never had. That night had been real for her, but for him, maybe it had been strategy all along. "Where are you taking me?" "Somewhere safe. I don't want your protection. I want to go home." "Home to what?" "Your apartment that the wolves already have under surveillance? The mother they're watching in Cape Town." He pulled out his phone, swiped through photos, held up to her face. Zola's breath stopped. There was her mother, leaving their old flat, grocery bags in hand, completely unaware of the black sedan parked across the street with its tinted windows and patient occupants. "How do you?" "Because I pay attention. Because in my world, information is currency, and I'm very wealthy." He pocketed the phone. "You have two choices. Come with me, let me protect you, and maybe survive this. Or I can drop you off right now, and you can wait to see whether the wolves kill you quickly or use you as bait first." "Those aren't choices. That's a threat." "No, a threat is what the wolves will do to your mother if you don't cooperate with them. What I'm offering is survival." Tears burned Zola's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "You don't care about me. I'm just another problem for you to solve." Something flickered across his face. Pain, regret, something almost human. But it was gone before she could be sure it was ever really there. "You're right," he said quietly. "I don't care. But I also don't let innocent people die because of me if I can prevent it. Call it penance. Call it guilt. Call it whatever you want. But you're coming with me, and you're going to stay alive. That's not negotiable." The SUV turned onto a highway heading out of the city. Zola watched Busan disappear in the rearview mirror and wondered if she'd ever see it again. Wondered if the girl who danced under neon lights and dreamed of teaching children still existed, or she died somewhere between a stranger's bed and a police interrogation room. Jae-hyuk sat beside her in silence, close enough to touch but impossibly far away. The man who'd held her like she mattered was gone. In his place sat a MAFIA prince who saw her as a liability, a complication, a problem to be managed. "That night," she said, her voice barely audible over the road noise. "Was any of it real?" He didn't look at her. "Does it matter now?" "Yes." Finally, he turned. His eyes held hers for a long moment, and in them she saw everything they'd shared. The heat, the connection, the desperate need to be someone else for just one night. "All that was real," he said. "That's why you're still alive." The compound sat in the mountains outside Busan, hidden behind high walls, and armed guards who watched the SUV approach with hands on their weapons. The gates opened, and they drove through into a world that felt like a different planet. Manicured gardens, traditional Korean architecture mixed with modern luxury. The kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself because everyone already knew. Jae-hyuk led her through hallways lined with art that probably belonged in museums. Staff members bowed as he passed, their eyes sliding over Zola with barely concealed curiosity. She felt exposed in her club dress, her makeup smeared, her hair tangled from the chaos escape. He stopped at a door, pushed it open. "This is your room. Don't leave it without an escort. Don't try to contact anyone. And definitely don't try to leave the compound. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference." "Is there?" Zola stepped into the room. It was bigger than her entire apartment. All silk sheets and expensive furniture and windows that overlooked the mountains. A gilded cage. For how long? Until the war is over. And when will that be? He didn't answer. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. You could have told me the truth that night, Zola said, turning to face him. You could have warned me what I was getting into. Would you have believed me? If I'd said I'm a MAFIA prince and sleeping with me might get you killed, would you have still come home with me? No, exactly. So I gave us one night where we could both pretend to be normal. One night where I wasn't responsible for an empire built on blood, and you weren't a dancer trying to survive in a foreign country. One night where we were just two people who saw each other. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry that night is going to cost you everything. But I'm not sorry it happened. He left before she could respond, the door clicking shut behind him with a finality that echoed through her chest. The next few days blurred together. Zola stayed in her room, venturing out only when a silent maid brought food or fresh clothes, expensive things in her exact size that someone must have purchased specifically for her. She stood at the window and watched the guard patrol, watched Jae-hyuk move through the compound like a king in his castle, surrounded by men who deferred to him with respect born of fear. She saw him in meetings through open doorways, his voice cold as he gave orders in rapid Korean she couldn't follow. Saw him in the training yard, moving through combat drills with lethal precision. Saw him late at night, standing alone on a balcony, cigarette burning between his fingers, looking so achingly lonely that she had to turn away. On the fourth day, someone knocked on her door. Not the maid. Jae-hyuk, come with me, he said. He led her to a shooting range built into the hillside behind the compound. The smell of gunpowder hung in the air, mixing with pine and earth. He handed her a pistol, showed her how to hold it, how to sight down the barrel. If they breach the walls, he said, his hands adjusting her grip, don't hesitate. You aim, you breathe, you fire. Hesitation gets you killed. His touch was impersonal, clinical. Nothing like that night when his hands had worshipped her skin. But Zola still felt the heat of him, still remembered how those fingers had made her come apart. She fired. The recoil jarred her arms, and the shot went wide. Jae-hyuk stepped closer, his chest against the back, his hands covering hers. Again, don't flinch. The gun is an extension of you. Respect it, but don't fear it. She fired again. This time the bullet punched through the target's shoulder. Better. His breath was warm against her ear. You're stronger than you think. I had to be. Cape Town doesn't raise soft women. No, he agreed. I suppose it doesn't. They stood there for a moment too long, his body aligned with hers, the gun heavy in their joined hands. Zola's heart hammered for reasons that had nothing to do with firearms. That night, she said quietly, you said you wanted to be nobody. Was that true? His hands tightened over hers. My father was killed that evening, at a peace summit that was supposed to end decades of bloodshed. Instead, the wolves shot him in the head while he was shaking hands with their leader. I got the call an hour before I walked into your club. His voice was flat, emotionless. I was supposed to go straight to the family compound, take my place, become what everyone needed me to be. Instead, I went looking for a place where no one knew me. And I found you. Zola turned in his arms, the gun forgotten. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't be. That night was the last time I was just a man. Just Jae-hyuk. Not the heir, not the prince, not the one responsible for keeping hundreds of people alive. Just someone who could touch another person and feel something other than duty. His dark eyes searched hers. You made me feel human. I'll never regret that, no matter what it costs. It's costing me my life, she whispered. I know, and I'll never forgive myself for it. He stepped back, breaking the contact. But I'll keep you alive. That's a promise. Over the following days, something shifted between them. He came to the range every afternoon to train her, taught her to shoot, to fight, to spot danger before it found her. Their conversations grew longer, deeper. He told her about Princeton, about studying business, while knowing he'd never use a degree because his future had been decided the day he was born. She told him about Cape Town, about the dance studio her teacher ran out of church basement, about her mother's illness, and the medical bills that never stopped coming. Why, dancing? He asked one evening as they sat on the range, the sun setting over the mountains in violent shades of orange and red. Because when I dance, I'm not thinking about money or survival or whether we'll make rent. I'm just moving, just being. It's the only time I feel free. She glanced at him. What about you? What makes you feel free? Nothing. I haven't felt free since I was 12 years old, and my father sat me down and explained exactly what our family business was, what I would become. You could leave, walk away, and go where? Do what? I have blood on my hands. Zola, not metaphorically, literally. I've killed people, given orders that ended lives. The man you met at the club, the one who wanted to be nobody, he doesn't exist. He never really did. I don't believe that. Zola turned to face him fully. That man was real. I felt him, touched him. He was more real than anyone I've ever known. Jae-hyuk's expression cracked. Just for a moment, you make me want to be him again. And that's terrifying, because in my world, wanting things gets you killed. Then maybe your world is wrong. He laughed, bitter and broken. My world is all I have. That night, Zola couldn't sleep. She wandered the compound, past a guard who watched but didn't stop her. Apparently she graduated from prisoner to guest. She found herself in the weapons room, drawn by a light she'd seen from her window. Jae-hyuk was there, shirtless, his torso wrapped in bandages that were spotted with blood. He was cleaning guns, his movements methodical, meditative. You should be resting, Zola said from the doorway. He didn't look up. So should you? What happened? She gestured to the bandages. Skirmish. 3 wolves tried to hit one of our supply routes. We handled it. You're bleeding. I'll live. I always do. Zola crossed the room before she could think better of it. She grabbed the first aid kit from a shelf, set it on the table beside his guns. Let me see. It's fine. It's not fine. You're bleeding through bandages. She reached for the tape, holding them in place. Let me help. For a moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then he set down the gun and let her unwrap the bandages. The wound was a knife slice across his ribs, stitched but angry, weeping blood. This needs to be cleaned again, she said, dampening gauze with antiseptic. I know. I'm just... He hissed as she pressed the gauze to the wound. Procrastinating. Why do you do this? Why not let the war happen and walk away? Because 300 people work for my family. They have children, parents, lives that depend on the income we provide. If I walk away, the wolves will slaughter them. They'll burn everything my grandfather and father built. And those people will die because I was too coward to do what needed to be done. Zola's hand stilled. That's not cowardice. That's just wanting to be free. In my world, they're the same thing. He caught her wrist, his grip gentle. You should hate me. I destroyed your life. I know. I should. She met his eyes. Why don't I? The air between them charged with electricity. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, and she felt that touch everywhere, like their bodies remember what their minds try to forget. Zola, he said, his voice rough, if I kiss you right now, I won't stop. And we both know this is a terrible idea. Then don't kiss me. They stared at each other, both knowing they were lying, both knowing what came next. He stood slowly and she rose with him. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. Tell me to stop. No. He kissed her like a man starving, like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. She kissed back with equal desperation, her hand sliding into his hair, care for his wound but unable to be gentle. This wasn't the sweet exploration of their first night. This was raw need, anger and fear and longing all twisted together into something that felt like both salvation and destruction. He lifted her onto the weapons table, and she wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him closer despite knowing this would only make everything harder. His hands found the hem of her shirt, and she helped him pull it over her head. Her fingers traced the planes of his chest, avoiding the bandages, and he shuddered under her touch. We shouldn't, he murmured against her throat. I know. This changes nothing. I know that too. But they both knew it was a lie. This changed everything, made them complicit in each other's destruction, bound them together in ways that would only end in blood. He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring. His hands mapped her body like he was memorizing her, like tomorrow she might disappear, and he wanted to carry the memory of her skin in his fingertips. She matched him touch for touch, kiss for kiss, letting herself drown in the feeling of being wanted, being seen, being more than just a problem to solve. When they finally came together, it was with a desperate tenderness that broke something in Zola's chest. He whispered her name like it was sacred, and she held him like he was hers to keep, even though they both knew he belonged to a world that would never let him go. Afterward, they lay on the floor, tangled together, his jacket beneath them as a makeshift blanket. Zola traced a tattoo on his shoulder blade. Korean characters she still couldn't read. What does it say? Duty before self. My father had it done when I turned 18, to remind me what matters. And what if you matter? He didn't answer, just pulled her closer, his face buried in her hair, his breathing gradually evening out into sleep. Zola stayed awake, watching the shadows shift across the ceiling, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat against her back. She knew this was temporary, knew that morning would come, and with it reality. The war, the wolves, the impossible situation they were trapped in. But for now, in this moment, she let herself pretend they were just two people who'd found each other in the darkness. The next morning, everything changed. Zola was in the breakfast room when Jae-hyuk entered, followed by his second-in-command, a man named Kong, who looked at her like she was a roach that had crawled onto his table. They were arguing in rapid Korean, their voices tight with tension. What's wrong? Zola asked. Jae-hyuk's expression was closed off. The wolf sent message. He set his phone on the table, tapped the screen. A video played. Zola's heart stopped. It was her mother, walking through Cape Town, grocery bags in hand, completely unaware of the camera tracking her movements. The video zoomed in on her face, then pulled back to show crosshairs superimposed over her head. A distorted voice spoke in English. Give us Min Jae-hyuk, or we start with the mother. You have 24 hours. The video ended. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Zola's hands shook as she gripped the edge of the table. They're gonna kill her. Not if we move first, Jae-hyuk said, but his voice lacked conviction. Kong slammed his fist on the table. This is exactly what I warned you about. She's a liability. The longer she stays here, the more ammunition we give the wolves. Careful, Jae-hyuk said, his tone dropping to something dangerous. I'm saying what everyone is thinking. We should eliminate the problem. Cut our losses. Zola's blood turned to ice. Eliminate the problem? You mean kill me? I mean remove the leverage. One bullet. The wolves lose their advantage. Jae-hyuk moved so fast Zola barely saw it. One moment he was seated. The next he had Kong slammed against the wall, forearm across his throat, gun pressed under his chin. Say that again, Jae-hyuk growled. Say one more word about killing her, and I'll paint this wall with your brain. Kang's eyes widened, hands raised in surrender. The other men in the room tensed, hands moving toward weapons. The air crackled with violence, ready to explode. Jae-hyuk, Zola said quietly, let him go. He threatened you, and you're proving his point. This is what I do to you. I make you weak. Jae-hyuk's jaw worked, but he slowly lowered the gun and stepped back. Kong stumbled away, rubbing his throat, shooting Zola a look of pure hatred. Get out, Jae-hyuk ordered. All of you, now. The men filed out, leaving them alone. Jae-hyuk stood with his back to her, shoulders rigid with tension. He's right, Zola said. I'm a weakness you can't afford. Don't. Your own men are questioning your leadership because of me. The wolves are threatening my mother to get to you. How many more people have to die before you admit this is impossible? He turned, and the expression on his face made her chest ache. I don't care if it's impossible. I'm not letting them kill you. I'm not letting anyone kill you. Even if it costs you everything? Yes. The word hung between them, absolute and terrifying. Zola realized, and what she'd been trying not to see, this wasn't just attraction anymore, wasn't just chemistry or circumstances throwing them together. This was something deeper, something that would destroy them both if they let it. I have a plan, Jae-hyuk said. It's risky, but it's the only option. Tell me, we use you as bait. Stage your escape, make it look real. You lead the wolves to a location we control. When they come for you, we ambush them. Take out their leadership in one strike. Zola's stomach dropped. You want me to walk into a trap? I want you to be the trap. I'll have men positioned everywhere. You won't be alone for more than 30 seconds. The moment the wolves show, we take them down. And if something goes wrong, his expression darkened. Nothing will go wrong. You can't promise that. No, but I can promise I'll die before I let them hurt you. Zola wanted to argue, to refuse, to demand he find another way. But she'd seen the video of her mother, seen the crosshairs. Time was running out, and this was the only move they had left. Okay, she said. I'll do it. Relief and fear warred across his features. He crossed to her, cupped her face in his hands. I won't let anything happen to you. Do you believe me? I believe you'll try. He kissed her then, soft and desperate, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. When he pulled back, his eyes were haunted. If this goes wrong, he said, if something happens to me and you survive, don't. Listen, if I die, there's a safety deposit box at Seoul First Bank. Everything you need is in there. Money, documents, a new identity. Get your mother out of South Africa. Disappear. Live the life you were supposed to have. Tears burned Zola's eyes. I don't want contingency plans. I want you to live. Sometimes we don't get what we want. Sometimes we just get what we can survive. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Jae-hyuk's men stage her escape. A distraction at the front gate, security cameras mysteriously going offline, her slipping out through a service entrance. They drove her to a car they'd left 3 blocks away, made it look like she'd stolen it. Then they vanished, leaving her alone with a phone and an address. The dockyard. Abandoned, isolated, perfect for a trap. She drove there as the sun set, casting everything in shades of blood orange and shadow. Her hands shook on the wheel. She kept telling herself Jae-hyuk's men were already in position, that she wasn't truly alone. But it felt like driving toward her own execution. She parked, got out. The smell of salt water and rust filled her nose. Shipping containers rose around her like metal tombstones. Wind whistled through gaps in the walls, lonely and cold. Well, well. The voice came from behind her. The little dancer. All alone. Zola turned. A man emerged from between containers. Expensive suit, cruel smile, flanked by a dozen armed men. This had to be the wolf leader, the one who'd sent the video. My name is Choi, he said, circling her like a predator. Where is Min Jae-hyuk? I don't know. I escaped. He kept me locked up. Choi's smile widened. You're a terrible liar. Did he send you here? Does he think I'm stupid enough to fall for such an obvious trap? Zola's heart hammered. He knew. Somehow he knew. I'm telling the truth. Gunfire erupted. Jae-hyuk's men, opening fire from hidden positions. The wolves scattered, returning fire. Bullets pinged off metal, ricocheted off concrete. Zola dug behind container, hands overhead. The world exploding into chaos around her. But the ambush was failing. The wolves had brought more men than expected, positioned them better. Jae-hyuk's forces were pinned down, outnumbered. Bodies fell on both sides. Blood pooled on the concrete, black in the dying light. Zola grabbed a gun from a fallen wolf soldier, her training kicking in. Don't hesitate. Aim. Breathe. Fire. She shot a man trying to flank her position. He went down and she felt nothing. No horror, no guilt, just the cold clarity of survival. She moved through the chaos, searching desperately for Jae-hyuk. Found him finally, behind an overturned forklift, bleeding from his shoulder, 3 wolves closing in on his position. One of them was Choi. He held a gun to Jae-hyuk's head, his smile triumphant. Drop your weapons, Choi called out, or Min Jae-hyuk dies. The gunfire stopped. An eerie silence fell, broken only by the groans of the wounded and the sound of waves against the docks. Zola stepped out from cover, gun raised, hands shaking but grip steady. Let him go, she said. Choi laughed. Or what? You'll shoot? You're just a dancer. You don't have it in you. You threatened my mother. You destroyed my life. You want to test whether I have it in me? His smile faltered. Jae-hyuk's eyes met hers across the space between them. Fierce, proud, terrified. Don't, Jae-hyuk said. Zola, don't do this. She didn't know if he meant don't save me or don't sacrifice yourself. Maybe both. Maybe neither. You love him, Choi said, genuine surprise in his voice. The Mafia prince and the club dancer. How touching. How absolutely pathetic. He pressed the gun harder against Jae-hyuk's temple. You know what? I'm going to kill him anyway. But first, I'm going to make you watch. Time slowed. Zola saw it all with crystal clarity. Choi's finger tightening on the trigger. Jae-hyuk's acceptance of his fate. The way his lips formed her name one last time. She remembered her teacher in Cape Town, saying dance was about commitment. No hesitation. When you move with everything you are. Zola didn't hesitate. She fired. The bullet caught Choi in the forehead. He dropped instantly, surprise frozen on his face for eternity. But the wolves didn't stop. More emerged in the shadows, dozens of them, like roaches spilling from cracks. They'd been waiting, planning. This was their trap, not Jae-hyuk's. Fall back, someone shouted in Korean. Jae-hyuk's men retreated, trying to regroup, but they were surrounded, outgunned, out of options. Jae-hyuk grabbed Zola, pulled her against him. They were back to back, guns raised, wolf soldiers closing in from every side. Red laser sights danced across their bodies, painting them in light that promised death. "I'm sorry," Jae-hyuk said, his voice rough. "For all of it. For the club. For that night. For dragging you into my war. Don't apologize." Zola's finger rested on the trigger, her breathing steady despite the terror flooding her veins. "Just survive." He laughed, broken and beautiful. "One night with you is worth this. Worth all of it. We're not done yet. We don't get to die in some dockyard because fate has a sick sense of humor." A wolf lieutenant stepped forward. "Drop your weapons. Final warning." Jae-hyuk squeezed her hand. Their fingers intertwined, and Zola felt the warmth of him, the solid reality that proved this was happening, that they'd found each other and lost everything and were about to lose even more. "Ready?" he whispered. "Always." They raised their joined hands together. The signal. Explosions rocked the dockyard. Fire bloomed in the darkness, consuming shipping containers, sending wolves scattering. The ground shook. Helicopters appeared overhead, searchlights cutting through the smoke. Reinforcements, Jae-hyuk's real backup, the ones he'd held in reserve for exactly this moment. Chaos erupted again. Wolves ran, regrouped, fought back. Jae-hyuk's forces descended like an avenging army. Gunfire, screams, the sound of metal tearing and bodies falling. Zola stayed close to Jae-hyuk, shooting anyone who came too close, becoming the weapon he'd trained her to be. They were going to make it. Against every odd, they were going to survive. Then someone grabbed her from behind. An arm locked around her throat, cutting off air. A knife blade pressed against her carotid artery, cold and sharp. "Hello, sister." A voice whispered in her ear. A woman's voice, speaking English with a Cape Town accent that Zola would recognize anywhere. The world tilted. Zola's gun clattered to the ground as her hands flew to the arm, choking her. Jae-hyuk spun, gun raised, but froze when he saw the knife at Zola's throat. The woman holding her laughed, bitter and familiar. "Miss me, little Zola?" Zola managed to turn her head enough to see her captor's face. Recognition hit, like a physical blow. "Thandi," she gasped. Her sister. Her older sister who disappeared 8 years ago, who everyone assumed was dead, who their mother still cried over at night. "Surprise," Thandi said. "Bet you thought you'd never see me again." "You're alive," Zola whispered. "How are you? What are you? What am I doing with the Wolf Syndicate?" Thandi's grip tightened. "Building a life. Making money. Surviving. All the things you're so good at, little sister. Except I did it without selling myself in some club." The word stung worse than the knife. "Mama thinks you're dead." Mama is better off thinking that. Just like she'll be better off when you're dead too. Jae-hyuk took a step forward. "Let her go. Your fight is with me. My fight is with anyone who stands between the wolves and power." And apparently, my baby sister decided to spread her legs to the enemy. Thandi's voice dripped venom. "Did he tell you what his family did? How they control Cape Town's drug trade? How they got our father killed?" Zola's mind reeled. Father died in a car accident. Father died because he owed money to the Baekdu clan's Cape Town operation. They cut his brake lines. Made it look like an accident. I've spent 8 years working my way up the wolf ranks, waiting for the chance to destroy them. She pressed the knife harder. Blood trickled down Zola's neck. "And now you hand me that chance." The great Min Jae-hyuk, willing to die for some dancer. He fucked once. Twice, Zola said. "We fucked twice. And I'm not just some dancer. She drove her elbow back into Thandy's ribs, remembering every self-defense move Jae-hyuk had taught her. Thandy grunted, her grip loosening just enough. Zola twisted, knocked the knife away, and they fell together onto the blood-slicked concrete. They fought like animals, no technique, just rage and betrayal. Thandy had training, but Zola had desperation. They rolled, grappling, each trying to reach the knife that had skidded away. "You left us," Zola screamed, landing a punch that snapped Thandy's head back. "You left Mama to grieve, left me to survive alone. I left because staying meant dying." Thandy kicked Zola off her, scrambled toward the knife. "The wolves offered me a way out, a chance for revenge. What did you offer? Nothing but the same poverty, the same helplessness." Thandy's fingers closed around the knife handle. She lunged. Zola rolled, but not fast enough. The blade sliced across her ribs, burning like fire. Then Jae-hyuk was there. He kicked the knife from Thandy's hand, aimed his gun at her head. "Don't move," he said quietly. Thandy froze, hands raised. She looked between them, and something like understanding crossed her face. "You really love her. This isn't just about guilt or protection. You actually love my sister." Jae-hyuk didn't answer. His gun didn't waver. "Then you understand," Thandy continued. "You understand what it's like to lose everything for something that matters. I lost my father, my home, my innocence because of your family. Can you blame me for wanting revenge?" "Yes," Jae-hyuk said, "because revenge is just another word for choosing to stay broken." Wolf reinforcements arrived. More helicopters. The tide of battle shifted again. Jae-hyuk's men were being pushed back, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. "We need to go," one of his soldiers shouted. "Now!" But they were surrounded, trapped between wolves and the ocean, nowhere to run, no way out. Thandy laughed. "Looks like we all die today." "How poetic." Zola struggled to her feet, hand pressed against her bleeding side. She looked at Jae-hyuk, this beautiful, broken man who'd given her one perfect night, and then destroyed her entire world, and then tried to save her from the destruction. She looked at her sister, alive, twisted by rage and pain into someone Zola barely recognized. The helicopters circled lower. More wolves poured in. Jae-hyuk's men formed a protective circle, but it wasn't enough. Would never be enough. "There's too many," Jae-hyuk said, pulling Zola close. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize." She kissed him, tasting blood and salt and goodbye. "You gave me something worth dying for." Searchlights pinned them in place. Voices shouted commands in Korean. Guns cocked, ready to end this. Then one of the helicopters exploded. Just exploded. A missile from somewhere, reducing it to fire and falling debris. Another explosion. Another helicopter down. The wolves scattered, confused, trying to find the source of the attack. From the darkness, more vehicles appeared. Not wolves. Not Jae-hyuk's men. Someone else entirely. A voice boomed over a loudspeaker, speaking Korean. Jae-hyuk's expression shifted from desperation to shock to something Zola couldn't name. "What's happening?" she demanded. "The Seven Dragons," he said. "The neutral clan. They're intervening." "Why?" "I don't know." A black sedan pulled up beside them. The window rolled down, revealing an elderly man with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. "Get in," he said in English. "Both of you. Now." "Why are you helping us?" "Because the war between Baekdu and Wolf has disrupted the balance. We're restoring order." His gaze flicked to Thandy. "And because I made a promise to your father 20 years ago, Min Jae-hyuk. I owed him a debt. Consider it paid." They scrambled into the car. Thandy tried to follow, but Wolf soldiers grabbed her, dragging her back. Her eyes met Zola's through the window, filled with hate and hurt and something that might have been regret. "Zola," she screamed. "This isn't over. Do you hear me? This isn't over." The car sped away, leaving the dockyard, the battle, the blood behind. Zola pressed her face against Jae-hyuk's chest, shaking, bleeding, alive. "It's okay," he murmured, holding her tight. "You're okay. I've got you." But nothing was okay. Her sister was alive and wanted her dead. The war was still raging. And somewhere in Cape Town, her mother had no idea that both her daughters had become casualties of a conflict she never knew existed. The old man drove in silence for a while, then spoke. The Seven Dragons have brokered a temporary ceasefire. 24 hours. After that, the war continues. Use the time wisely. What does that mean? Zola asked. He met her eyes in the rear-view mirror. It means you have one day to decide who you want to be. The dancer who survives, or the queen who fights. They reached a safe house in the countryside. Isolated, defensible, stocked with supplies. The old man left them there with a warning and a promise. The ceasefire would hold, but after that, they were on their own. Inside, Zola collapsed onto a couch. The adrenaline was fading, leaving nothing but pain and exhaustion. Jae-hyuk cleaned and bandaged her wound, his hands gentle, his expression tortured. "Your sister," he said quietly. "I didn't know about your father. I was 14 when that happened, but I swear I didn't know. It doesn't matter. What's done is done. It does matter. Everything matters." He finished bandaging, sat beside her. "I can get you out of Korea. Tonight, new identity, enough money to disappear. Take your mother somewhere safe, alive. And you, I stay. I end this war one way or another. You'll die. Probably." Zola looked at him. This man who'd been a stranger, an enemy, a lover, a protector, everything and nothing all at once. She thought about the girl she'd been 3 weeks ago, dancing under neon lights, dreaming of a future that felt safely impossible. That girl was gone. In her place sat someone harder, someone who'd killed without hesitation, someone who looked death in the face and laughed. "I'm not leaving," she said. "Zola, my sister is with the wolves. My father's death is tangled up in your family's business. My mother is being watched. Running won't change any of that. And I'm tired of running. Tired of surviving. You asked what makes me feel free? Dancing. But you know what I realized tonight? Fighting makes me feel alive." He stared at her, something like awe in his expression. "You're insane. I'm in love with a MAFIA prince." Insanity is implied. The words hung between them. Finally spoken. Finally true. "I love you too," he said, "which is why I need you to leave. Because if you stay, you'll become what I am. Hard, cold, stained with so much blood you'll never wash it off. Then we'll be stained together." She took his hand, intertwined their fingers. One night changed everything. "Let's see what we can do with 24 hours. He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, and they fell into each other like drowning people clutching at air. Outside, the ceasefire held. But they both knew that in less than a day, the world would come for them again. And this time, they'd be ready. If you're still watching, drop a comment below if you want part 2. Hit that subscribe button. Because trust me, this story is just getting started. Fandy's alive. The wolves want revenge. And Zola just made the most dangerous choice of her life. She chose to fight. What happens when the ceasefire ends? Will she survive? Will her mother discover the truth? And what secrets is Jae-hyuk still hiding? Like this video if you're ready for more, and let me know in the comments. Should Zola trust her sister, or is Fandy too far gone? Part 2 drops soon, and it's going to be explosive. See you there.